Welcome to this edition of NewsWatch. I'm Charlene Aaron.
And I'm Ephraim Graham. Today on the broadcast, how to protect your money from the tax man.
But first, let's go to the CBN newsroom for updates on news of the day. Mark Martin has the stories.
Thanks, Charlene. A 24-hour truce extension for Gaza was broken by Hamas early this morning when it launched 3 rockets into Israel. Gary Lane has more in our top story.
No injuries were reported when Hamas rockets hit a location in southern Israel. Israel responded with airstrikes against Gaza rocket launch sites.
Today's rocket attack on the Israeli city of Beersheba is a grave and direct violation of the ceasefire that Hamas committed to. This is the 11th ceasefire that Hamas has either rejected or violated. And it's clear that a ceasefire has to be a two-way street. It's not just that Israel hold its fire, Hamas must hold its fire too.
The ceasefire violation frustrated Gaza residents, who say they just want to start rebuilding their homes and lives.
We want to be able to live, to be able to return to our houses, even if I have to set up a tent in what was once my house. But to stay like this, homeless, one day I am staying at a school, another at a hospital, or at my sister's place, or in other places, that's very tiring. We want this to end.
But a lasting peace agreement remains distant. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu has called Israeli negotiators home from talks in Cairo. He sees no reason to negotiate, while Hamas uses rocket attacks to get its way at the bargaining table. Israel wants the demilitarization of Gaza. Hamas spokesman Sami Abu Zuhri says Israel is not serious about making peace with the Palestinians.
The occupiers are still employing a policy of procrastination, and they don't have any real will to reach an agreement.
Hamas wants a lifting of Israel's blockade on Gaza, but Israel believes open borders without Israeli oversight will lead to the continued militarization of Gaza. Netanyahu insists Hamas's goal is to destroy Israel and doesn't want peace talks, so more strikes and counterstrikes may be forthcoming. Gary Lane, CBN News.
About 1.5 million people have been displaced by fighting since the rapid advance of ISIS in Iraq began in June. Iraq's Christian and Yazidi minorities have been running for their lives as the terrorists have swept across northern Iraq. Community Harvest Church in Lincoln, Nebraska reaches out to the Yazidi people, and Pastor Mark Jones joins us now via Skype to tell us more. Welcome, Pastor Jones.
Thank you.
What exactly is their religion all about?
They believe in a God. They believe in a creator that also created 7 angels, and they tend to honor and revere angels as those who God set over the world. And the chief angel that they worship is Malek Taus. And many think that that's the devil. That's why ISIS says they're devil worshipers, but they're not devil worshipers. That's not an accurate description of what they do. They've also had contact with Christianity. There are some reports that they recognize Jesus as the Son of God, although they wouldn't recognize him as God. They believe in the virgin birth, things like that.
Okay, interesting. Wow. Well, what do you think about what's going on in Iraq with ISIS trying to annihilate the Yazidis?
It's terrible. We have spent many evenings in the last 2 weeks with Yazidi families, talking to them, hearing their stories, praying with them. All of them have family members that are lost, have been killed, have been captured. We do get some reports of family members that have been rescued and gone to safety, but the whole community is devastated. They're in mourning right now. One man found out that his whole family in Iraq had been killed, and just the looks of desperation and helplessness in their faces was something I'll never forget.
Would you say that what has been going on, the atrocities in Iraq, has maybe made the Yazidi people in your neck of the woods more interested in the gospel of Jesus Christ?
They've told me that the only people that they've ever gotten along with are Christians, and that's saying a lot. You can tell a lot about the people because they mark time in the number of genocides that have been attempted against their people And this latest attempted genocide by ISIS is the 74th in their entire history.
Well, what can fellow believers do to help your ministry and Yazidis around the world, including in Iraq?
The most important thing, of course, is to pray. We have seen many answers to prayer. We know that many believers around the country and the world have been mobilized to pray. And I think the fact that the United States has given humanitarian aid and some limited military aid is a direct answer to prayer. So prayer is huge. And I think immediately they need prayer for the rescue of the remaining people on Mount Sinjar, and also people that are trapped in Sinjar and surrounding towns that are occupied by ISIS. And then, of course, for all the people that are in refugee camps, that God would just protect them and keep them safe and provide safe haven for them.
Amen. Amen. Well, thank you so much, Pastor Jones, for your time today. And we pray that God would continue to protect you and everyone involved in this ministry.
Thank you.
In other news, Pope Francis is giving his blessing to efforts to stop ISIS militants from attacking religious minorities in Iraq. Journalists asked the Pope if he approves of the U.S. airstrikes on the jihadi army. He replied that it's acceptable to stop an unjust aggressor and that church teaching allows for just wars. The Pontiff also said he's considering visiting northern Iraq to show solidarity with persecuted Christians. American opinions on Iraq have shifted a lot in recent weeks. Last month, the USA Today Pew Research poll showed 55% said the U.S. did not have a responsibility to intervene. Now that stands only at 41%. CBN News spoke with the former owner of the private security contracting firm Blackwater for more on what's happening in Iraq.
Thousands of dead Americans, dead allies, tens of thousands of wounded, all for very limited effects. And to have, and really, I come back to that window of opportunity 4 years ago, that diplomatically Maliki lost the election. He should have been forced out, and he wasn't. Huge failure on the part of the Obama administration.
Prince says it's critical that Iraq finally has a new prime minister whose biggest job will be to convince Sunni Iraqis to join the government in eliminating the ISIS threat. And you can find the full interview with Prince at cbnnews.com. Here at home, churches are calling for more prayer and ministries are reaching out in Ferguson, Missouri, following more violence. During protests Monday night, as CBN's Heather Sells reports, at least 2 people were shot, 31 arrested, and 4 police officers were injured.
Overnight, the National Guard kept its distance from the street protesters, but still, Ferguson looked in some ways like a war zone, with police firing tear gas and demonstrators fighting and throwing Molotov cocktails. It's why law enforcement is calling for peaceful protests.
Encourage the good people of this area to come out and protest tomorrow during the daytime hours. Make your voices heard when you can be seen and when you're not the cover for violent agitators.
A number of Ferguson residents say while they want to protest the shooting death of Michael Brown, they don't support those resorting to violence.
We are looking for peace, and these other guys are just looking for an opportunity to break in different businesses.
We've seen reports where there are some outsiders coming in, and I believe that's where the problem comes. That's where it lies.
Preliminary autopsy results show 18-year-old Michael Brown was shot multiple times.
At least 6 shots. Could be more, but at least 6.
A grand jury could consider what happened in the shooting as early as Wednesday, and that will determine whether Officer Darren Wilson is charged. Some initial reports suggest that Brown was facing Wilson with his hands raised, while other witnesses say that Brown was charging Wilson. For many believers in St. Louis right now, there's hope in the peace of Christ. Pastors are organizing another prayer meeting tonight and working towards reconciliation and forgiveness.
The first part of reconciliation is to getting all the powers that be, all the varying opinions through leadership to the table to talk.
In the meantime, extreme tension in Ferguson. Authorities have canceled the start of school. There's a no-fly zone over the city, and the National Guard is in town to stay for now. Heather Sells, CBN News.
A new survey shows that support for the Common Core federal education standards is slipping. Education Next surveyed 5,000 respondents. They found 40% of teachers support Common Core compared to 76% in 2013. General public favor has dropped from 65 to just 43%. Momentum to repeal the standard is gaining strength across the country. Governors in Oklahoma and South Carolina have even signed laws to repeal it. And Louisiana Governor Bobby Jindal says he plans to do the same. Coming up, Ephraim and Charlene are back with more on the sweet snack that's actually good for you.
Massive evacuations are underway in central California due to fast-moving wildfires. People in some 13,000 homes and businesses have been told to get out as a 1,200-acre wildfire threatens the area. Evacuation orders have also been issued for 4 hotels in the community of Oakhurst, about 16 miles away from the entrance to Yosemite National Park. Classes for most of the Yosemite Unified School District were canceled today.
The state of Virginia could begin issuing same-sex marriage licenses this Thursday. That is, unless the U.S. Supreme Court intervenes. Attorneys have asked the nation's highest court to stay the decision by a lower court to strike down a voter-approved ban on gay marriage. In a similar case, same-sex couples in Arkansas are asking the Supreme Court to deny a request to delay same-sex marriage proceedings. A judge in Little Rock threw out the state's same-sex marriage ban back in May. More than 500 same-sex couples have received marriage licenses before the state issued an emergency stay.
In health news, overweight and obesity are closely linked to 10 common cancers. That's according to the biggest study ever on the relationship between cancer and body weight. A higher body mass index was tied to cancers of the liver, colon, ovaries, breast, gallbladder, uterus, kidney, and other forms of cancer. The findings out of England were the most extensive ever on the link between cancer and being overweight, and it serves as another warning that eating a balanced diet, exercising, and keeping the right body weight will help you stay healthy.
A new study earlier this year found that the resveratrol in red wine, chocolate, and grapes might not be as healthy as previously thought. But take heart. Chocolate also contains other ingredients that are good for you. Our Lori Johnson has got the story.
Most people know green veggies like broccoli are good for you, and blueberries are rich in healthy antioxidants. Now we're learning more about the cocoa bean, where we get chocolate. Doctors say the antioxidant found in cocoa keeps your blood flowing.
Flavonoids are something that, depending on what food it is, will help different systems. And so the main flavonoid in chocolate is called flavanol. And flavanol will help to improve blood pressure. It helps the blood to clot better so it doesn't get sticky in the arteries.
Chocolate, a health food? It sounds too good to be true. And as it turns out, there actually are a couple catches.
Make sure you choose the kind with a high percentage of cocoa because it contains the most flavanols. Unfortunately, flavanols tend to make chocolate taste bitter.
And you really want to look for dark chocolate and that high percentage of cocoa. You know, maybe that 70%. So the brand doesn't matter. It just really matters on the type of chocolate. So that dark chocolate, that high percentage of cocoa.
In order to reap the most benefits of chocolate, you only need a small amount.
I would recommend 1 ounce of a dark chocolate a few times a week. I don't think it's something that you have to, have every day.
Some people avoid chocolate because it contains fat, but Jeffers says don't worry about that.
The stearic acid was shown that it does not improve or make your cholesterol worse. So that type of saturated fat in chocolate is actually okay to have.
So chocolate can be good for you. Just go dark and enjoy it in moderation. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
Up next, take the money and run. If you're taxed enough already, you'll want to watch our next story. Find out where many Americans are going to protect their pocketbooks.
Would you want to live in a state with low taxes or high taxes?
Well, right now, people are voting with their feet and their pocketbooks as they're moving between states. And as you probably guessed, the low tax states are winning. Heather Sells has more.
Not only is Tennessee a beautiful state with a mild climate, it has no personal income tax and an overall low tax burden. It's an easy sell for Mary Jo Page, who heads marketing for the retirement community Fairfield Glade.
A lot of people are coming from the Midwest, Wisconsin, Illinois, Michigan, Ohio. A lot of people are coming from the Northeast because that's a very expensive place to live.
Researcher Travis Brown took a look at IRS data that tracks adjusted gross income and found that people are also flocking to the 8 other states with no personal income tax and generally low taxes.
Generally what we find is that taxpayers over the long term are fleeing the high tax states and flocking to the low tax states.
Critics contend that low taxes play at most a minor role when it comes to migration between the states. They point to research that shows that people move for climate, new jobs, and cheaper housing. It's all part of a growing debate over what is the best way for states to tax and what factors lead to prosperity. It's also why an inquiry into the nature and causes of the wealth of states has become a New York Times bestseller and potential game changer for public policy. Heather Sells, CBN News.
Stephen Moore is chief economist at the Heritage Foundation and co-author of An Inquiry into the Nature and Causes of the Wealth of States. Thank you so much for being here. Now, I know you and your co-author did extensive research for the book, but is it really a surprise that people and businesses go where the taxes are lowest?
Shouldn't be. It shouldn't be a surprise, but there are a lot of liberals who resist this message, and we provide just an avalanche of data and experience showing that the states that have low taxes and light regulation are doing a lot better than a lot of the blue states like New York and California and my home state of Illinois and Connecticut, New Jersey that have much higher rates of taxation, and it's are just not business friendly places. And so what we're seeing, the big story here is that jobs and businesses really are moving across state borders, and they're moving to the South because the South gets the picture right for the most part.
Why do governors and legislators in these high-tax states seem to miss this basic fact that their economies are certainly shrinking? Why do they miss this fact?
Well, there's a blue state, red state divide that's going on. So what you've got is a kind of ideology in a lot of these northeastern states and some of the states like Oregon and California on the West Coast that, you can be liberal, you can be, quote, progressive, and everything's going to turn out really well for workers, except the problem is all the workers are leaving those states. So it doesn't turn out so well in practice. And about 3,000 people each and every day are moving from high-tax states to low-tax states. This is one of the most important migrations in the history of America, and it's happening because people want affordable places to live and businesses want places to locate where they can be competitive. I mean, my goodness, there are 9 states today that have no income tax at all. Tennessee and Texas and Florida and Wyoming and South Dakota and Nevada and places like that. Whereas you go to states like California and New York and New Jersey, you're paying 10% income tax or more. So you can save a lot of money.
Do you think Washington will learn some lessons from the states with low taxes? Will they ever look and see the signs?
You'd like to think so. We have a corporate tax system right now that is chasing American businesses out of this country. So for the same reason that companies will move from one state to another, they will move from one country to another. One of my worries is that because liberals are starting to figure this out, that people are moving from the high-tax liberal states to the low-tax conservative states, they want to get rid of the differences between the states and federalize everything like we did with Obamacare so that state differences don't matter.
What are the taxes you would say that are the worst?
Easily the income tax, because that's a tax. Think about it. What is an income tax? It's a tax on work. It's a tax on entrepreneurship. It's a tax on your paycheck. Those are things that really deter growth. I also think there are a lot of states that have death taxes. So if you die in those states, you have to give up 10, 12% of your estate to the government.
But we know the country needs taxes to function. Are there any effective taxes, you think?
Well, one of the points that we make in the book is, of course, you want taxes to pay for the basic services,
Absolutely.
Roads and hospitals and fire service and police service and things like that. We find that some states like Texas, because there's a whole chapter in our book about California versus Texas. Texas pays almost about half as much for public services as California does. It's a little bit of an exaggeration, but California pays way more for its public services. But guess what? Public services tend to be better in Texas than they are in California.
So sales tax a better way to go?
Yeah.
Much better.
So those 9 states that don't have an income tax that are really growing, they depend more on sales taxes. So you're taxing, think of it this way. When you tax sales, you're taxing people on their consumption. That is what they take out of the economy. When you tax income, you're taxing people on what they put into the economy. That's not a good tax system.
All right. Thank you so much. Once again, the book is called An Inquiry into the Nature and Causes of the Wealth of States, and it's available wherever books are sold. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Great insight.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Finally today, how long does it take to get from the United States' west coast to the east coast?
It all depends on your mode of transportation. For example, it took these Eagle Scouts 2 months to travel nearly 4,000 miles on their bikes. They took on this adventure with a mission in mind to inspire young men to lead a healthy and active lifestyle and to persevere.
Kansas is 125 miles, and it was like mile 120. I was sitting there, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is horrible, because it's like 110 degrees outside. It was just absolutely horrible. And I wanted to quit, but I was thinking, 5 miles away, just finish it.
Our first day at Stinson Beach, California, we started with our back tires in the Pacific Ocean. We finished the ride at Virginia Beach with our front tires in the Atlantic Ocean.
Nice job. What's their next adventure? Well, for now, getting back to school. Some to high school, like 15-year-old Tucker Cullen, the youngest scout on this adventure, and some to college, like 18-year-old Ben Prevost, who will start his freshman year at Regent University. Pretty close to home.
Kudos to them. Wow.
Indeed. Congrats.
Well, that's it for now on CBN News Today. You can find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues you care most about at cbnnews.com.
And we want to hear what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can do it on Facebook or at CBN News on Twitter. Join us right here next time. Make it a terrific Tuesday.